If you guys thought I was some like raging Desnat crazy person, like you're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong.
How do you see the world? Latter-day Saints all think the same, right? Well, turns out this isn't true. You see, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints doesn't have any creeds. The only requirements for belief are those found in the baptismal or temple recommend interviews. Some members are more progressive, while others are more traditional or orthodox. In addition, members have different points of view in which they see moral issues. Some come from more of a justice and law perspective, while others view things with more compassion and mercy. I created a quiz to map members of the church onto a spectrum of belief according to where they fall on the progressive orthodox scale and on the justice mercy scale. And to put this quiz to the test, I administered it to Jacob Hansen, a prominent LDS YouTuber who runs the Thoughtful Faith YouTube channel.
People might be surprised by the way that I answer some of these questions. The point of that is to accentuate her fertility as a woman. I would tell everyone in my stake to not sustain the stake president in the next stake conference. Drop your hoo-ha's out where we see him. Is there a neutral? Sorry, guys. If you guys thought I was some like raging Desnat like crazy person, like you're wrong. You're wrong.
In this video, I'm going to reveal what quadrant you land on, how the quiz was made and how it works, and where Jacob Hansen ended up landing when I gave the test to him. But first, why does this even matter? Well, the point of this quiz is to build bridges of understanding, to help each other understand one another. And to be honest, it's kind of fun. So what quadrant do you land in? Well, I got good news. You can look in the description of this video to take the quiz for yourself. The quiz is exactly like the famous political compass quiz. You are given a series of audacious statements and must respond if you agree or disagree with them. The options are strongly agree, disagree, and strongly disagree. There is no neutral. You must give a response. Furthermore, questions are designed to be somewhat vague and require interpretation. In fact, one might say the way you interpret things is what we're actually measuring. But the moment you've been waiting for, in which quadrant does Jacob Hansen of Thoughtful Faith land in the LDS Compass quiz? Abortion can be justified.
I'll put disagree.
Okay.
I'm not going to go to strongly disagree because I agree with the church's position that there are rare instances in which an abortion could be justified.
So shouldn't you say agree?
But see, this is the thing, though. I actually go on the disagree side.
Yeah.
That it can be justified. Well, what the question is, can be justified?
Yep.
Okay, then maybe I will put agree.
Oh, wait, you can't change your answer though. That's the rule. I'm just messing.
Okay,
with
fine. Then we'll go with disagree. I'm okay
just
with
trying
either
to get
one
you to explain
because
yourself, right? You know.
It just depends on what a person like what they mean by an abortion can be justified.
Exactly.
Abortion on demand cannot be justified, but abortion in certain cases can be. So I say I disagree that it can be justified because most people, when they talk about abortion, they're talking about just kind of abortion on demand. So
Okay. See, yeah, this is what we're trying to capture. This is good. How you kind of like think that it's trying what it's trying to say. The Book of Mormon is historically accurate.
I would say agree.
But the flood, Jacob, the flood, you don't think that's historically accurate?
I agree.
Which is it?
Just, people, if they want to know my view on the Book of Mormon, is that I believe that it is a... Actually, I will put this out there because I thought a lot about this as I prepared for my debate with Trent Horn.
Yeah.
It's like, what is the Book of Mormon? And some people may not like this, but I think it's where the evidence lies. I think the Book of Mormon is an authentic ancient record dealing with a tribe of refugee Jews who ended up landing most likely somewhere in Mesoamerica, who integrated into the society there and began a ethno-cultural group within the greater tribal civilizations that were there. All the people that enjoined themselves to that group were known as Nephites, that kind of became part of the in-group were Nephites, and everyone else was Lamanites because it was like Jew and Gentile. That was their distinction. It's a common distinction in the old world. And so it's this group of refugees who put down a record. However, because it is an authentic ancient record, authentic ancient records are always stories. People didn't do forensic history like we do today. And so they told the stories of their people Those were then translated by the gift and power of God by Joseph Smith into 19th century English of the King James variety. And I believe that there may have been even doctrinal expansions and or other divinely inspired mythologizing that happened even through the translation process with Joseph Smith. What we have is what God intended us to have and the message. But I also do not believe the Book of Mormon, as I think President Nelson has even said, is best understood as a history book. It's meant to teach us about God and our relationship to him. I think that's the purpose of Scripture. But that does not mean that the things that happened in it are not based in real history. We can quibble about all the different stuff, but that's why I say I agree rather than going to the strongest part of that where somebody might say literally every word is, infallible historical documentation exactly as the literal words say.
As man now is, God once was. As God now is, man may be.
Disagree. And this one, again, you can have a whole conversation with me about this. This is going to move me away from the Orthodox side, I think. Yeah. There's nothing in Scripture, in canonized Scripture anywhere, that says that God was once a man, so far as I can tell. Like, to say that he was once a mortal sinner that, did bad things and, lived on an earth. I'm not saying that that isn't possible. That's why I'm not saying strongly disagree. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying that my heuristic or method for interpreting the Scriptures is based on sort of my collective witness model.
Right.
And the collective witness of the Scriptures and the prophets doesn't support that view. That's a very late view that's come up. I don't think it's an inherent contradiction to Scripture per se, but it's pretty close. I mean, we do pray to God, the eternal Father, every week in sacrament meeting. And our Scriptures talk all about the eternality of God. And so it gets into some mushy territory. Again, I'm not saying that this is right. I hold it much more loosely. I think it's possible, but if you put a gun to my head and said, did it happen? I'd say, I think this might be a later invention.
But wasn't Jesus fully man and fully God and eternally God?
I actually do not think that Jesus was fully man. I reject that because I don't think that... I believe that he was fully man... Well, that's a tough question because it depends on the way you're defining man and God. I say
True.
that the attributes of man... To be fully human being, you can't be all-knowing, for example.
Right. Was Jesus
to
always
be God, you
all-knowing?
must... Well, that's the thing. If there was ever a point in the past in which Jesus did not know all things, then he was not always God in eternity past. Because to be God in eternity past at all times means that you never lost your omniscience. If Jesus did truly become man, I would actually say that when Jesus was man, he was fully man. He was not fully divine. He did not have omniscience, for instance, in his while he was mortal. That's why he said that he didn't know the day or hour of the second coming, only the Father knew. It's like he literally said, I'm not omniscient.
Right. Yes.
So it's a puzzle. Christology. I'm really good at critiquing the Christology of other Christians.
Right.
I will admit my own probably needs some more work and study.
Decaf coffee is not against the word of wisdom.
I feel like, is there a neutral? Is there
There is no neutral. That's the difficulty here.
But agree. Maybe just slightly on the agree side. Oh, wait. No. I disagree.
Okay, well.
Sorry, I had that confused. Do change that one. Disagree.
Okay, yeah.
So I disagree, but I'm kind of I don't know. Actually, wait. Yeah, just disagree. And I'm not going to say strongly just because there's a little bit of doubt in my mind. Or I think it is.
Okay.
But I don't think caffeine is the issue with coffee. I think it's just coffee. You're not supposed to drink coffee, so.
It was wrong for Adam and Eve to partake of the fruit.
Shoot, that's another one I'd put it neutral. It was wrong of them to partake of the fruit. I'd say disagree. It's I wish I could say neutral, but if I had to pick one, I'll pick disagree.
I mean, they were commanded not to, right? So
yeah.
Is it not wrong to go against the commandments of God?
That's I can see that logic. Yeah, I still disagree because I think the fall was necessary.
Could it still be wrong and necessary?
I don't know, man. That's a tough one.
It is. Okay.
Am I allowed to change my answer?
No.
I don't know. I'll leave it. I'll leave it as is.
Now, not all of the questions were this difficult to answer. Some of the questions Jacob could answer right off the bat. It is appropriate and good to pray to Heavenly Mother.
Strongly disagree.
The Temple Recommend interview is a necessary and important process to determine worthiness.
Strongly agree.
Pornography addiction should disqualify someone from entering the temple.
Agreed.
It is not possible to be born into the wrong body.
Strongly agree. Stronger than you can agree.
Personal revelation is more important than anything the prophet says.
Strongly disagree.
It is very difficult to make it to the celestial kingdom.
Agree.
Brigham Young was racist.
Strongly agree. He definitely was. If you know his history, I'm sorry, you guys. Like, you're not going to get around that one. Anyone who says otherwise, you don't know the history then. Essentially, everyone in the church and the world generally was racist up until about 1945. So, chill out.
Real quick, I need to interrupt for a brief message from our sponsors, which is nobody. Okay, we'll get back to the video. Emma Smith did nothing wrong.
Strongly disagree. I have great respect for the woman because of her spat that she had with Brigham Young. Said some things that weren't true, in my opinion, and did not follow the saints out west and did not do what she needed to do. I don't fault her for it, but I definitely would not say that she did nothing wrong.
Doctrine is not well defined and therefore is not of value to discuss.
Disagree. The first part, I would say that doctrine is defined for sure, but it isn't well defined. I think that there is some challenge to that, but I absolutely think, I think because it can be a little bit shaky, that it should be discussed.
Okay, tithing should be paid before anything else, including taxes.
Yes, I strongly agree. I'm a tithing fanatic.
Nice.
Although I will also say and it has nothing to do with money. It in fact has to do with everything of saying money doesn't matter to me. Screw it, take it all, Lord, and just totally trusting in the Lord. But I will say that I'm not a believer like you pay on the gross and then you'll get gross. But it's like, dude, just freaking pay it on what you think is right. Like that gets stupid.
Excommunication is often unnecessary.
Disagree. That statement can be true, but it can be unnecessary, but especially in today's context, it's more necessary than ever.
Eternal marriage has and will always be between one man and one woman.
Agree. I'm not going to say that it's only that way. I think that you can have more than one wife.
Right, like polygamy, right? But you're agreeing.
I'm a believer that polygamy is actually a doctrine of the church still. It's just not it's like war. Like, war is not always justified. And in fact, it's the exception, not the rule. But sometimes war has to happen. So
what do you say to people who would say polygamy was marriage between one man and one woman? It was just multiple marriages.
Yeah, I agree with that stance.
Okay.
I do. If this is about the number of wives, then I would say that I only agree. That's why I wouldn't say strongly agree. If it's about if you had said it's marriage will and always be a male-female union, I'd be like strongly agree plus some.
Progress from the telestial kingdom to the celestial kingdom is possible. Even after the final judgment, there's room to move up.
I strongly disagree with that.
Different scriptures.
Progress between kingdoms after final judgment.
Exactly. That's what this is getting at. Okay.
Nope.
So strongly.
I strongly disagree in movement between kingdoms after final judgment.
It is possible that one day a woman will be a member of the quorum of the 12 apostles.
It's a tough one because you're saying, is it possible? I don't see any contradictions that it creates inherently in Scripture. I'm going to say that I disagree.
Okay.
Meaning I don't think that a woman could be an apostle, but I can't say strongly because you're using the word possible, and I don't necessarily see something that makes it like that it isn't something that could be possible.
It is wrong to exclude transgender individuals from the temple.
Strongly? someone who has gender dysphoria but still goes and participates as a man, I guess this is another one that's kind of tricky on the question. Are we talking about someone that's fully transitioned and like is going there as a woman? Like that, I'm all like strongly agree that person, unless they decide to do the ordinance as a man, then like, no, you can't. And I have no problem with that. But if you're saying, can someone who experiences gender dysphoria participate in the temple in the normal way that they're supposed to? Of course. So I'm really torn on that question. I don't even know, is it wrong to deny someone to, see, I would probably change the question to, is it wrong to deny someone who wants to go as the gender they identify as through the temple? Mm-hmm. I'd say I strongly agree that they should not be. So I don't know. I guess I need a little clarification on that question.
See, but this one, I can't really give you any. It's
Okay,
meant
so
to
if you're
be
not gonna give
ambiguous
me
because
any-
I want to see how you react to the
Read
terminology.
one more time.
It is wrong to exclude transgender individuals from the temple.
Disagree. It is okay to exclude them.
The sacrament should only be taken by worthy baptized members.
Agree.
Okay.
I'm not going to say strongly agree because I don't want to like go and like yell at someone who just came to church for the first time because they take the bread. And like if my kid wants to have some bread, like I don't think it's hurting anything. So that's what I'm going to do.
Everyone who wants to get to the celestial kingdom will get to the celestial kingdom.
See, it's either agree or strongly agree. I'm going to say strongly agree. Just because I think that knock and ye shall, and it shall be open, and you seek and ye shall find. And so if they want it, they'll eventually get there. As long as, and that's basically it. As long as you really truly do want it, you'll get there. I think that's the message of the gospel.
Stealing is always wrong.
Disagree. I believe all of morality is situational and algorithmic. It's about weighing different values in different contexts, and I think that's what the gospel teaches you to do, is to understand we're not a gospel of laws, we're a gospel of principles. Principles are truths. You account for the different truths, kind of like an algorithm, and then based on the inputs of the situation, you know what proper outputs to put out in your behavior.
All mistakes are equal in the eyes of God.
Strongly agree. I actually strongly agree because I think that in the eternal scheme of things, I always ask people, how much sin is allowed in the celestial kingdom? None.
No unclean thing.
Which means no matter what you do, I think that there are practical consequences, that's what we're talking about when we're talking about this sin is more serious than another. We're only talking about it in terms of their practical consequences. In terms of your spiritual consequences, every sin has the same consequence. You don't get into the celestial kingdom. Any of them. You have to repent of all sin. Everything. That's what it means to be celestial, is you're someone who just rejects sin categorically, and you are working to overcome it, and you are justified in that through the atonement of Jesus Christ in some sort of eternal scheme and process. So.
Same-sex kissing violates the law of chastity.
Agree. Kind of a more controversial take that I have is that we actually should exude things like sexual signaling to the opposite sex. Like the reason women wear makeup is to sexually signal. Like that's literally what they're doing. And so, like guys wear the shoulder pads in their suits, that's actually a sexual signal. And what actually makes our world somewhat interesting is that there is a little bit of sexual signaling going on that's actually part of beauty. And so beauty isn't wrong to a level, but we must moderate it. We have to be modest so that we don't inflame passions. We keep life interesting with beauty. Literally, like the most modest dress a girl can wear that like goes in at the waist and goes out at the hips. The point of that is to accentuate her fertility as a woman. Now, you may think that, oh, that's weird, but it's like, no, actually, that's sexual signaling, you guys. We just believe that what you call beauty in like the male-female dynamic is all sexually connected. But we just believe that at some point, it's like, okay, you're getting out of control here. Like, make life interesting with a little bit of sexual signaling, but don't go overboard and like friggin' drop your hoo-haws out where you can see them.
Yeah. All men should wear a white shirt and tie to church on Sundays.
I agree. I'm not going to say strongly agree because like I don't think it's a problem if they don't, but I would say if you had said officiating in priesthood ordinances, I'd say yes.
Okay.
But because not everyone's officiating in priesthood ordinances, I don't think that that's necessary. But I think it's the brethren have talked about it like almost like the uniform of the priesthood to wear a white shirt and tie. And so I think if you are officiating in the priesthood in any way, you should. But since that doesn't specify that, then I would just say I agree they should, but kind of like, meh.
Legally concealed firearms should be welcome at Sunday service. I'm sorry.
Strongly agree.
Okay, interesting. I think the church has
Absolutely.
the opposite stance. I don't think they...
I agree, and I am against that stance.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
In fact, I think my bishop, if I'm not mistaken, my bishop, even after that came out, he had a guy in the ward that was assigned
Oh, really?
to carry. And he was assigned, like, if something happens, I want you to be the guy that, like,
The marshal.
stops it.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, because he's a bishop, I was wondering if there's, like, a secret, and this would be so cool if this exists, if there was, like, a secret order from, like, the brethren to be like, hey, we're going to tell everybody this, but bishops, like, here's the secret message. You find one guy in your ward to carry.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, tell that guy to be, like, ready to go if someone comes in.
Referring to members as brother or sister is uncharitable because it is not inclusive language.
Ah! Strongly disagree.
All of these come from actual things that people say and believe. Quick
I know.
Media just made a video about this exact thing from a Relief Society
Who did?
presentation. Greg Madsen.
Oh,
Quick.
Greg Madsen, yeah.
Yeah.
He had talked about that. Yeah, it is freaking. Oh my gosh, I would be going nuts. I literally, and I'm the type that, like, if that happened in a stake and no action was taken to correct it, I would tell everyone in my stake to not sustain the stake president in the next stake conference. I would say literally we all need to stand up and oppose until he does something. That's how far I'd go on that. You shouldn't sustain leaders who are blatantly disregarding their duty. I'm a big believer in that. When you have a leader who's basically rebelling against the brethren, they need to be, like, the ordinary members need to stop sustaining them because they aren't sustaining the brethren, and they need to be called out for it.
War is never justified.
Disagree. I wouldn't say I strongly disagree, just because, like, war is a bad thing. Like, we need to, like, I don't want to jump on the, like, yeah, strongly disagree. Let's go freaking kill people. It's like, I'm just gonna disagree with that. Okay.
Any excess tithing funds should go directly to helping the poor.
Disagree. It's up to the brethren. Actually, I'm gonna say strongly disagree. Strongly disagree.
Ooh, okay.
Even to have an opinion on that is like, no, you're not in charge of the tithing funds, idiot. You give the money up intentionally as a sign of the Lord that money is not as important to you as his kingdom.
Doctrine is eternal and unchanging.
I hate this because doctrine, I would say I disagree. I wouldn't say strongly disagree because doctrine is the teachings of the church, and teachings of the church are granted by men. Men are fallible, and so they can't be. Truth is, I'd say truth is, but I don't. Doctrine is what the church claims to be true. What is true is independent of what they claim. Now, hopefully they align, but the church, because the church is fallible, doctrine can be incorrect. So I would disagree with that statement.
One should always follow the prophet, even if he is wrong.
This is one I want to say, like, neutral on. I don't want to agree or
but you
disagree
can't.
because it depends what he's wrong about. I would put disagree. I think if you know that he's wrong, you shouldn't.
Killing can be justified.
Agreed. I will go strongly agree just because it's like, I don't want to get too... I don't want to get too excited about killing.
Yeah. Killing Laban. Okay, if that would have happened in today's day and age, Nephi would be facing capital punishment.
Yeah, from the laws of
First-degree
the
murder?
land.
Okay.
But
yeah,
I don't think that I don't think the laws of the land are the highest, and I think in that instance, Laban had been trying to kill him.
So Nephi says.
And people are like, oh, well, that wasn't self-defense because he was passed out on the ground. It's like, yeah, and Osama bin Laden was hiding in his house when they went in and shot him. You know what I mean? Like, if you have someone who is guilty of trying to kill you and you kill them, it's like you're at war when someone's actively trying to kill you and your family. And there's no, like, authorities to, like, help bail you out or something. So it's a little complicated, I'll admit, but, like, no. I think that you can be justified in killing someone if there is justification from God that is legitimate.
The prophet cannot lead you astray.
I disagree. The prophet can lead you.
Do you have an example?
If they're mistaken, they can lead you to places that are mistaken. But I'm not going to say I strongly disagree because I think they're the most reliable source for spiritual guidance. That's why I trust them. But I don't trust them totally blindly, and I don't say that it's not possible that they could take me somewhere that is incorrect if I just were to follow them along, like to have certain theories about black people.
Just
For
to throw it
example.
out there. Yeah.
Just as a hypothetical.
Okay, so that's an example then. Okay. In heaven, a man and a woman, and we'll say a male and a female, are not required to create spirit children.
Disagree. Are you talking in the celestial kingdom? Is that specifically
Sure,
what's
yeah.
meant? Okay, I'm going to say strongly disagree then, because one of the commandments of God is to multiply and replenish the earth. It's part of the measure of your creation, and that is what we're designed to do in the celestial kingdom, is to become.
But do you need a man and a woman to do that?
Yes.
A male and female. Oh, okay.
I think it's inherent in the nature of male and female. Now, whether that involves celestial sex with people with bodies, like
Yeah.
people getting all into that. Look, I don't know how it all works. I'm not gonna conject. Whatever.
So
it
you admit
is,
you don't know how it
however-
works, but you say that it must require a man and a woman.
Yeah, I do agree, because I actually think that spiritually, that which is on earth echoes with that which is in eternity. And I believe that male-female isn't just about the biology. I think that spiritually men and women are different. And I think that they complete each other. I think they're like a yin and a yang. And so it's like saying, can you be at your fullest of your potential in heaven without your yang or your yin? It's like, no, you have to have both pieces to be whole. Part of that wholeness allows for the full measure of what the possibility of what you can do, which is to become a co-creator with God. So how exactly that plays out in an eternal world, I don't know. But it seems to be baked into the plan that male and female are two parts of a whole. And if we want to be whole in heaven, if that's the goal, well then that's required.
A gay man could be called as an apostle.
Is he acting on it? Is he in a mixed orientation marriage? I'm going to say that I agree.
Okay.
It could be. For all I know, we've already had one. I don't know. I don't know what sort of sexual feelings people have. And so, yeah, I mean, it's possible as long as they're not acting on it.
Women will never hold the priesthood.
I'm going to say I agree, but I'm not going to. Oh, actually, no, I'm going to say strongly agree, because this isn't about possibility. It's just saying that, like, women will never hold the priesthood. I'm going to say I strongly agree. I do not think that they will.
The church can never be in a state of apostasy.
Strongly disagree.
We're talking about the modern church, the Latter-day Church.
Yep.
Okay, fair enough.
Yep. We have agency, right? We have
I
agency,
do.
then
I think you do.
I think I do too. And I think that if all of us do, then that means we all have, like, every single one of us could. Now, is that probable? No, but it's possible.
Ultimately, leaving the church can be a good thing.
Strongly disagree.
Ooh. So you don't buy into this idea that, like, some people just needed to leave for a path and that would ultimately lead them back in for whatever reason?
Nope, because they could have done that within the church. They could have come to their senses within the church. That you don't have to fall into the pit to recognize there's a pit there.
Well said.
And especially when it says ultimately, right?
Yes.
Yeah, ultimately, definitely not. Because ultimately, we're talking about, like, in the end, it was good that you left the church. Like, no. No, it wasn't. It would have been better if you stayed in the church and repented.
The shape and style of garments is primarily driven by culture.
Trying to decide if I strongly agree or just agree. I'm going to say agree. I'm not going to say strongly agree, because I think that there are maybe some limits on that, but the symbols are what they are. But I don't think, like, how high above the knee the short is, like, that's in any way, like, doctrinally mandated by revelation from God directly through an unchangeable ordinance of God. So,
But wouldn't the symbolic significance necessitate a certain length?
see, that's why I said agree and not. I don't think like the over the knee thing. Like, if it's higher up, it's still over your knee. It still conveys the symbol. Like, it doesn't have to actually be touching the kneecap. It has to be above the knee. Over the knee doesn't necessarily mean covering. And if it did, even then, I'm like, you can still convey the same symbol if it's up a few inches. Like, it's not. It gets kind of pharisaical when people are like, no, your garments, they lose all. Like, God will not accept it if that thing is an inch too high. That's weird. No, I think that symbols are symbols. They're meant to communicate something.
You heard it
That's
here first. Jacob wants short shorts to be in stuff.
They come out with like tank top ones or.
Hey, have you seen that? They kind of did.
Yeah, but I mean, if they went like full on like spaghetti straps for women or
it's
something,
it's
like
not spaghetti strap, not even close.
Yeah, but I'd be fine with that. I'd be like, yeah, right on.
Okay.
You know, make the shorts shorter. Make it, make them like the regular Hanes underwear for dudes. Like, I don't care. Like, there's no, I don't like the purpose of the garment is to cover your nakedness and to convey certain symbolic truths. People who use it as like a modesty tool, I think that's like, no, that's not the scripturally man. It did not say in here that it's supposed to do that. It's supposed to cover your nakedness, let's say, but it's like, all right, well then why doesn't it go down to our wrists? Like, let's really cover every bit of our nakedness. I believe in modesty, which also implies not going too far to the other extreme either. It's a middle ground, and I think that middle ground is largely determined by what acts as a sexual signal within a given context that you're in. I don't think the sexual signaling of a topless woman in an African village is the same kind of sexual signal as a topless woman in Lehigh walking down the streets to the local barbecue, right? Those are very different sexual signals that are going on. My view on modesty is much more I don't like the word orthodox because I consider myself orthodox.
We'll see.
But I don't like the idea of orthodoxy, like, I'm not an extremist, I guess I would say.
Not rigidity, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not a psychotic Pharisee.
So I'll shout out a plug. You have a great video on modesty. Everyone should go check it out. That you get into much more details about what you were just saying. That's, I think, really well done. So.
I am kind of proud of that one. Although I think that some of maybe the people who who get really mad at me over the flood are going to get really mad at me over that one too. Sorry guys, if you guys thought I was some like raging Desnat like crazy person, like, you're wrong. I also am like I said, I find myself pretty in the middle.
Let's see the results of Jacob Hansen's quiz. You landed in the Orthodox Justice Quadrant. This quadrant is characterized by a firm alignment with traditional church teachings and a strong emphasis on justice, accountability, and obedience to established doctrine. Those in this category are often deeply committed to upholding the standards of the church and believe in a God who expects moral discipline and adherence to divine law. They see following the straight and narrow path as essential and believe that blessings and salvation are tied to living according to clear, established principles.
I actually, that's interesting. I'm about where I thought. I'm
Okay.
not too crazy out. I'm on the Orthodox side, just about 25%, and then I'm on the Justice side, about the exact same 25%. I'm very interested to see where everyone else falls on this.
Were you surprised where Jacob Hansen landed? Were you surprised where you landed? Let me know in the comments below. But you might be wondering, where do the great people of Ward Radio land on this quiz? Well, I can only guess, but in the meantime, if you want to know the shocking truth about Cardinellis, then you're going to have to check out the next video.